What's up, guys? Welcome to Flack Math. We're going to review for practice test 16. So hold on to your seats. It's going to be great.
Flack Math! Give me some math and I'll give you some flack. Flack Math!
All right, practice test 16. Number 1, Camille mowed lawns for 2 hours and earned $5.80 per hour. Then she washed windows for 3 hours and earned $5.20 per hour. What were Camille's average earnings per hour for all 5 hours? So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna find out how much money she made and then divide it by 5. That makes sense to me. So let's do that. So 2 hours at $5.80. So that means she worked 2 hours. So we're gonna do 2 of those. And then we're gonna do 3 hours at $5.20. Okay, so that's 5 hours. So let's see, that's $11.60 plus $15.60. Add them together and you get $27.20. And now we're gonna divide by 5. So basically what we're doing is we're kind of finding the average of each of what she got paid. So there was 2 580s and there was 3 520s. So let's find the average of that. So I'm gonna divide 2720 by 5. All right, let's do it. Throw it in the box, 2720. 5 goes into 27 5 times, multiply, subtract, bring down the next one. Remember, put that decimal up there, it goes into 24 times. Okay, multiply, subtract, bring down the decimal, it goes in 4 times exactly. So here is her average hourly rate. Boom, done. All right, let's try number 2. Evaluate A plus, parenthesis, A squared minus AB minus B. Well, you gotta know what A and B are. So A is 10 and B is 4. So let's plug in these guys. So this is 10 plus A is 10. So 10 squared minus AB. So when it's 2 letters next to each other, that's multiply. So A times, well, what's B? Well, B is 4. So 10 times 4 minus whatever B is, 4. All right, so now we've got a math problem and we're gonna follow the order of operations. All right, so what do you do first? Always P first. Good rule in life, do it. All right, let's do what's inside the parentheses. Inside the parentheses, there's some order of operations happening here because there's exponents, there's subtraction, there's multiplication. So we're gonna do this exponent first. That 10 squared is not 10 times 2, it's 10 times itself. So that's 100, okay? Everything else we're gonna copy down. We're not gonna touch that yet. All right, now what do you do next? Well, we're still inside that parenthesis. So let's multiply next because multiplication comes before subtraction. 10 times 4 is 40. Everything else I'm not gonna change. So that's still 10 plus 100 minus 40 minus 4. All right, we're still in those parentheses, so keep going. What's 100 minus 40? Well, that's 60. So then we have 10 plus 60 minus 4. Well, we can do that math because that's all addition, subtraction. Remember, go left to right. 10 plus 60 is 70, minus 4 is 66. Boom. Okay, number 3, we're gonna compare. All right, so if D minus E equals 0, let's see here, D minus E equals 0. Well, let's just solve for D. How do you get D by itself? Gotta get rid of that minus E. Well, how do you get rid of minus E? You add E to both sides. So basically D equals E. And that answers our question. So D equals E. Boom, so this is equals. Because if you subtract 2 numbers and it equals 0, those 2 numbers are the same. It's true, I promise. All right, number 4, ratio. Uh-oh, ratio box, boom. Ratio of boys to girls, I'm gonna put B, G, was 2 to 3. 2, 3. So remember, this is our ratio column, and this will be our actual number column. If there were 155 in all, okay, well, where does the 155 go? That's not talking about boys or girls, it's talking about boys and girls. So we're gonna do a boys and girls row, which is total. And this is where our 155 goes, okay? So in our ratio column, we have a total ratio too. If it's a 2 to 3 ratio, then the total is gonna be 5. All right, and then what does it ask for? How many were boys? So it's asking for how many were boys. So this is where we're gonna put our variable. I'm gonna choose B for boys, okay? All right, so now we have a proportion. So really, if you look at this, that you've got a number here and a number-ish there, a number here and a number there. So we don't need this middle column anymore. So our ratio is just gonna be 2 over 5 equals B over 155, okay? So we can use the fish method. Fish method is the cross products are equal, so we're gonna multiply 155 times 2 and then divide by 5. 155 times 2 is 310, divided by 5 equals 62. Boom, 62 boys. It's a lot of boys. All right, number 5. A car travels 120 miles on 6 gallons of gas. How many gallons will it need to travel 260 miles? Okay, so you can set up another proportion if you want. You could say miles and gallons. All right, if you go 120 miles on 6 gallons, how many gallons, so here's our variable, need to travel 260 miles? So look at that. There's another proportion. So we can fish that home. 260 times 6 divided by 120. So if you do that math, 260 times 6, let's just do it. 260 times 6, 0. 6 times 6 is 36, plus 3. 2 times 6 is 12, 15. So now we're gonna divide that by 120. That goes in one time. Okay, and then 120 goes into 360 13 times. So it's gonna be 13 gallons. Okay, that's pretty cool. The other way you could have done it, you could have reduced this fraction here. So 120 miles and 6 gallons. So that's really just 20 miles per 1 gallon, okay? All right, so if you have to go 260 miles, 260 divided by 20 is 13 gallons. So you could do it that way too if you wanted to. All right, moving on to number 6. All right, the diameter of a circular running track at Jill's school is 35 meters. What is the circumference of the track to the nearest meter? Okay, I'm gonna do something awesomely cool here. I'm gonna draw a circle. So awesome. What? Number 6, so the diameter is 35 meters. So this diameter is 35 meters, okay? So what is the circumference? Well, here's what you need to know. The circumference is pi times the diameter, all right? So we're gonna use 3.14 for pi, 3.14 times 35, which is the diameter. So let's do that. 3.14 times 35. All right. So that's that. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then we remember we have 2 decimal places here. So 2 needs to go in the answer. So we get 109.90, and we're asked to round to the nearest meter. So nearest meter is right here. That 9 tells us to go up 1. So add 1 to 109, you get 110 meters. Cool. All right, number 7, moving right along. The coordinates of the vertices of this triangle XYZ are this, this, and this. XYZ is reflected, in the y-axis. Find the coordinates of the vertices of this image. Okay, so we're gonna go to our graph and we're gonna graph these points. Okay, so we're gonna graph X. So X is 3, -2. So that means we're gonna go right 3 and then down 2. So right 3, boom, 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 down 2 is right there. There's X, okay? Y is right 1, down 2. So right 1, down 2, right there. And then Z is 3, -6. So right 3, down 6. Okay, so here's X, Y, and Z. So let's connect the dots because I like to connect dots. It's pretty. Okay, so we're gonna reflect over the y-axis. So here's our line of reflection, right? This is the y-axis. Okay, so it's like this triangle XYZ is looking in this mirror. What does he see? Well, this is the image. So it looks like this is 1 from there. So this has got to be 1 from there. So this is y prime. Looks like X is 3 from the y-axis. We're going to go 3 from the y-axis over here. So here's X prime. And then Z is 3 as well. So that is Z prime. And then there's it. Okay, X prime, Y prime, and Z prime. Does that make sense? So what are these coordinates? Okay, well, X prime is gonna be, well, how do you get there from the origin? Well, you have to go left 3 and then down 2. So this is gonna be left 3, down 2, okay? Well, Y prime, how do you get the Y? Left 1, down 2. So this is left 1, down 2. And then Z prime is left 3, down 6. Okay, so the only difference between X and X prime is this 3 is now a -3. The only difference between this Y and Y prime is that 1 turned into a -1. Okay, so you're just oppositizing the X value in number 7. All right, let's do number 8. We're gonna draw this on a number line, okay? So let's just draw it right over here. So here's what the number line looks like. And this reads X is greater than 3. Or if you look at the arrow, X is to the right of 3. Well, what is X? That's what we're shading, okay? So if this is 3, we're gonna shade to the right of that. But we're not gonna include 3. This doesn't say X is greater than or equal to 3. It's X is greater than 3. So we're gonna put an everything but there. So we don't shade that, but we're gonna shade everything to the right of it, okay? So that's what that looks like. You can also write it like this if you want. I've seen people just write a circle above it and then just put an arrow above it. That works too, okay? You don't have to do all the other things like 2, 1, 0, 4. I mean, it's nice and it looks more detailed. But as long as you have that circle on the 3 and shade to the right, you're good. Number 9, Melanie needed 28 inches of wire for her project. She used 1/4 of a full spool of wire. How many inches of wire were on the full spool? So we're saying that 28 inches was 1/4 of the full spool. So how do you say 28 inches is 1/4 of the spool in math? Okay, well, how do you say 28? 28. How do you say is? Equals. How do you say 1/4? 1/4. How do you say of? Do you remember what of means? That's right, it means multiplication. And how do you say spool? Well, that's what you're looking for. So that is your variable. So I'm going to choose a variable. I'll say S. I use cursive S because, that looks like a 5 and we don't like that. All right, so let's solve this equation. Well, how do you get S by itself? You have to get rid of that 1/4. What is that 1/4 doing to that poor S? Multiplying. So how do you get rid of multiplication? You divide. So divide both sides by 1/4. So here's the math problem you're left with. You're left with 28 divided by 1/4. Well, how do you divide? You need a fraction divided by a fraction, right? So we're going to copy dot flop. 28 over 1, we're copying. We're going to dot. And we're going to flop. Does that make sense? All right, well, what's 28 times 4? Well, that's 112. And what is it? Inches? Okay. So 28 is 1/4 of 112. All right, awesome. Moving on to number 10. Okay, 10 has 4 parts here. We're going to multiply positive times a negative is a negative. So we can just ignore the negative sign now and just multiply 14 times 90. And when you have a 0, you can kind of tail that on the end and bring it down. 4 times 9 is 36. So 1,260. And remember, our answer is negative. So make sure you put a negative on that answer. So that's A. What about B? B says 19 times 60. So tail that, hang that 0 on the end there, bring it down, and now just multiply 19 times 6. So that's 54, carry the 5, 1,140, and remember it's a positive times a positive, so that's going to be positive. It might be good if you want to take your, just go through and make sure you know the answers are negative, positive, and what's a negative divided by a negative? That becomes a positive. Positive divided by a negative is negative. Then you don't have to worry about the positives and negatives anymore. Just make sure that you put those signs on the answers. All right, let's do this guy. What's negative 88 divided by negative 11? Well, remember, we don't have to worry about the negatives anymore, so we're just going to divide 88 by 11. That goes in exactly 8 times. Okay, last one. 350 divided by 7. 350 divided by 7. 7 goes into 35 5 times. And then 7 goes into 0 0 times. So 50. There's your answer to D. All right, so here's B, here's C, and here's D. Good job. Well, I don't know that you did a good job. I'm just assuming you did a good job. All right, let's complete this table. I'm just going to go right over here, and we'll do it inside of here. Okay, so how do you change a fraction to a decimal? Well, that's just a division problem. So all you're doing is saying, in reading that, 4 over 9 is just 4 divided by 9. Make sure that 9 goes on the outside. So 9 doesn't go into 4, so add a decimal and a 0, and that's where your decimal goes. 9 goes into 40. 4 times 9 is 36. Subtract, and you get a 4 and bring down another 0. So what's going to happen? You're going to keep repeating this forever. Okay, so how do we write 0.44444444? That's a repeating decimal. So we're going to put a little line over the 4. Boom. All right. Okay, well, what about percent? Well, we're just going to move the decimal over 2 places for that percent. So what happens? Well, when you move the decimal over, it's going to be 4, 4, and then the 4s are going to keep going. All right, so you can write your answer like that, but it's better to just write 44 and 4/9. But I'll take that answer, that's fine. All right, so this is a 0.65. I kind of wrote over it, sorry. So how do you change a decimal to a percent? Well, you just move it over 2 places. So that's nice. That becomes a 65%. And then how do you change a decimal to a fraction or a percent to a fraction? Well, 65% is just 65 over 100, and you can reduce that. You can take a 5 out of both of those. And if you divide a 5 out of both of those, divide by 5, divide by 5, you get 13/20. Cool. All right, let's do number 12. So we're going to translate this, and then we're going to solve. 42, how do you say is, equals 3/5, how do you say of, times, remember of means times, of what number? How do you say what number? Well, that's your unknown, that's your variable. All right, so how do you get n by itself? you have to do the opposite of whatever's hanging out with n. So 3/5 is multiplying by n, so divide by 3/5. Divide by 3/5. So n equals 42 over 1 divided by 3/5. So what do? We copy, dot, flop. So 42 is copied, the division is dotted, and we're flopping the 3/5 to 5/3. All right, now we can do a little cross reducing. You don't have to, but it just makes your answer, it makes it easier to get your answer in the end. That goes in 14 times. 14 times 5 is 14. 4 times 5 is 20. Carry the 2, 70. All right, that works. So 42 is 3/5 of 70. That makes sense. All right, still going here. 13. What percent? How do you say what percent? Well, that's what you're looking for. So choose a variable that talks about that makes you remember percent. P of, how do you say of again? Times 60 is equals 18. How do you solve for P? Well, get rid of whatever's hanging out with P. Okay, divide by 60. Divide by 60 because 60 is being multiplied, so do the opposite. So P equals, what's 18 divided by 60? Well, let's do it. 60 doesn't go into 18, so add a decimal. It goes into 180 exactly 3 times. Boom. So P equals 0.3. But I chose P because it reminds me that I'm looking for a percent. So how do you change a decimal to a percent? Well, that's right. You have to move the decimal over 2 places to the right. So 30%. Boom. All right, 14 is just a division problem. So we're going to rewrite this as a division problem. 2 4/5 over or divided by 61. Well, remember, we have to write that as a fraction, so 61 over 1. All right, well, what do we think of mixed numbers? We don't like them. We wish they would leave us alone, okay? Let's change that mixed number into an improper fraction. So remember to do that, you multiply 5 times 2, add 4, keep it over 5. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 4 is 14 over that same 5, divided by 61 over 1. So now how do you divide fractions? You copy, dot, flop. So 1 over 61. All right, you're not gonna get any fun reducing there, so you just multiply across. 14 times 1 is 14. 5 times 61 is 305. And that's all you can do. Doesn't seem very exciting. All right, number 15, we're gonna find the area of this trapezoid. Well, if you remember the area of the trapezoid, that's great. If not, you can separate this shape into 2 shapes that you do know. It looks like this forms a square right next to a triangle, okay? So let's figure out the dimensions of that. So this is 4 by 4 square. Well, that's just 4 times 4, which equals 16. Well, if this whole side is 8, then, and this is 4, then this has to be 4. Does that make sense? And if this is 4 over here, then that means this is gonna be 4. So how do you find the area of a triangle? Well, that's base times height divided by 2. Don't forget to divide by 2. So that equals 4 times 4 divided by 2, which is 16 divided by 2, which is 8. So what's the area of that trapezoid? It's gonna be those 2 areas added together. So your area is gonna be 16 plus 8, which is 24, and area is in the square inches. Square inches, okay? Cool. Number 16. We're gonna solve this equation. We've been doing this all day. We can do this all day. How do you get rid of that 4/5? Well, it's being multiplied, so divide it. Divide by 4/5, divide by 4/5. Cancels there, and we're left with this division problem. 100 divided by 4/5. Remember, you can only divide fractions with fractions, so turn that 100 into a fraction by throwing it over 1. Now we're gonna copy, dot, flop. All right, cool. Cross reduce, 4 in the 100, 4 goes into 125 times. Now we just multiply 25 times 5, which is 125. Boom and boom, done. Nice. All right, 17. We can do 17. We're not afraid of 17. H minus 0.02. So how do you get H by itself? Well, what is that 0.02 doing? It's being subtracted. So to get rid of it, we add it. So add 0.02 to both sides. Don't forget, you're gonna line up the decimals there. Okay, when you add those together, I'm gonna put a 0 there so I'm not confused. 0 plus 2 is 2, 2 plus 0 is 2. Bring down the decimal, 6. So H equals 6.22. Awesome. All right, number 18, we're gonna simplify this. Okay, so what do we do first? Let's just rewrite it here. Okay, so this big line, this division bar is just one big parenthesis. So that means we're gonna simplify the top, simplify the bottom, and then the last thing we're gonna do is divide. Okay, so let's look at the top. What do we do on the top first? Well, exponents come first, so we're gonna do that, and we're gonna do that, and we're gonna do this, because those are all exponents or roots, okay? Let's rewrite 4 squared. What's 4 squared? It's not 4 times 2. What is it? 4 times itself. So that's 16 plus 6 times 8. I'm not gonna do anything else. I'm just gonna do the exponents and roots. Well, 3 squared is 3 times itself, which is 9. All divided by, what's the square root of 81? Well, that's what times itself equals 81? That's 9. All right? Next step, please excuse my dear, multiplication and division. So 6 times 8 and 6 times 9 is what we're gonna do. Don't do this division because that's outside of this parenthesis. All right, so let's rewrite everything, 16 plus, and just do our multiplication, 48 minus 6 times 9 is 54, all over 9, okay? So now we just have addition and subtraction left to right. Okay, so we're gonna go 16 plus 48, which is 64 minus 54. That equals 10 all over 9. All right, a couple more. Number 19, 6 1/3 divided by 1.9. Okay, so we want a fraction answer. So we're gonna convert everything to fraction. That's okay, but how do you write this as a fraction? Well, if you say it, it's 1 and, how do you say 0.9? 1 and 9/10. So this is just 6 1/3 divided by 1 and 9/10. Okay? We don't like mixed numbers, so change them to improper fractions, and you get 18 plus 1 is 19/3. Divided by 10 plus 9 is 19/10. Okay, now we're gonna copy dot flop. 19/3 dot 10/19. Ooh, that's nice, because look what happens. You can cross cancel those 19s. Those are just ones. So now you're just left with 1 times 10 is 10. 3 times 1 is 3, and you're done. You could write it like that, or 3 1/3. Both are nice. Okay, good job. Last one, number 20. Negative 33 minus negative 23 plus positive 32. All right, first of all, subtraction is dumb. Say it. I'll wait. Say it. I'll wait for you to say subtraction. I'm not moving on until you say it, so say it. Okay, subtraction is dumb. Some of you didn't say it. Whatever. So we're gonna change all of our subtraction to addition. So this is negative 33, that's not a subtraction problem. Minus, there's a subtraction. So how do we do this? We chicken scratch, bok, bok. All right, and then nothing else is subtraction, so we're done. So really we have negative 33 plus 23 plus 32. So these are our positives, and they're gonna fight against this negative. So that if I add those together, it's 55. This is added with a negative 33. The positives are gonna win by 22, done. All right, so that was practice test 16. Hopefully you guys are well prepared for Test 16 Form A. If you have any questions, let me know, but that's it. Awesome. Well done. Well done. I'm proud of you. Have fun on this test.
Flack math. Give me some math and I'll give you some flack.